A wildfire burning through a dense Arizona forest forced thousands of people from their homes on Wednesday. It closed a major road and created a huge plume of smoke over the same area devastated by a blaze that killed 19 firefighters 4 years ago. The fire is burning in communities around Prescott. The mountain city is about 100 miles north of Phoenix and draws a mix of desert dwellers escaping the heat, retirees, and visitors to its famed Old West-themed Whiskey Row. While being fanned by winds ranging to 35 miles per hour, the fire has charred 32 square miles. More than 500 firefighters are battling the wildfires.
On Wednesday, 32-year-old Michael Tate Reed yelled "Freedom" as he crashed his vehicle into Arkansas's brand new Ten Commandments monument. The privately funded statue had been in place outside the state capitol in Little Rock for less than 24 hours before it was knocked down and smashed to pieces. The incident comes nearly 3 years after the same man was arrested for the destruction of the previous Ten Commandments monument in October of 2014. An official with the American History and Heritage Foundation, the group that raised the money for the monument, said it has already ordered a replacement, but said it would take at least a couple of months.
China launched its newest warship on Wednesday, a large guided missile destroyer touted as the latest in naval technology and seen as a challenge to naval rivals in Asia. The ship, dubbed the Type 055 class, represents a big step in the country's military modernization. The 10,000-ton destroyer has been developed entirely in China, and it breaks new ground for the country in the design and assembly of large naval vessels. The new ship is comparable in size to the latest destroyers fielded in Asian waters by the United States, Japan, and South Korea. Indian media reports have raised alarms over the launch, pointing out the destroyer is superior to any ship yet completed by the Indian Navy.
A wildfire burning Wednesday through a dense Arizona forest has forced hundreds of people from their homes, closed a major road, and created a huge plume of smoke over the same area devastated by a blaze that killed 19 firefighters 4 years ago. The fire in the mountains about 75 miles north of Phoenix, fanned by 35-mile-per-hour winds, has charred more than 28 square miles. More than 500 firefighters were battling the blaze.
Wednesday, protesters staged sit-ins on Capitol Hill as the GOP healthcare plan continues to experience backlash from constituents across the country. 40 protesters were taken into custody. Shouts of "Kill the bill, don't kill me" could be heard outside the offices of GOP leaders. According to NBC News Online, staffers for Senator Rob Portman, Republican of Ohio, actually allowed the demonstrators to enter the offices where they chanted, "Don't save money for millionaires, save Medicaid."
If you see this text, your files are no longer accessible, and you've been the victim of a cyber attack. It's a message like this that companies around the world saw in the latest hacking attack. The method is straightforward.
Apparently, it was a mailing list. People received emails with attachments, they opened these attachments, and then their computers and the company's whole computer network got infected.
But these are sophisticated criminal gangs using software known as ransomware. It holds users' data hostage and demands payment to release it. The latest attack particularly hit Ukraine, but it's also affected other parts of Europe, the US, Russia and Australia. Some of the companies affected include UK advertising firm WPP and Russian oil company Rosneft. It comes just a little more than a month after ransomware known as WannaCry crippled the UK's National Health Service computers. This time, the malicious software is known as Petya.
We know that it's a version of Petya, which is a ransomware that has been around for a little while. We also know that it has been available for sale for as little as $28 on the internet.
The source of these types of attacks is difficult to trace. But whoever's behind this latest hack is thought to be using leaked software known as Eternal Blue. The US National Security Agency is believed to have developed it. NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden criticized the agency for enabling the latest cyber attack. The NSA hasn't commented. IT security experts have warned there will be more attacks to come. And countries and companies around the world need to get more switched on to the scale of this cyber threat. Sarah Firth, TRT World, London.
President Nicolas Maduro said a stolen police helicopter fired on Venezuela's Supreme Court Tuesday. He called the incident a thwarted terrorist attack aimed at ousting him from power. The confusing exchange is bound to ratchet up tensions in a country that is already paralyzed by months of deadly anti-government protests. The attack took place as Maduro was speaking live on state television. Venezuela has been roiled by anti-government protests the past 3 months, which have left at least 75 people dead and hundreds injured. A new study has found that concentrations of airborne polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs, inside schools could expose students to the compounds at higher levels than through diets. Researchers at the University of Iowa tested the air inside and outside 6 schools, 4 of which are within 2 miles of waterways serving major industries in the area. PCBs can remain in soil and water and can accumulate in animals, leading to exposure to humans through environment and diet. Results of the study showed that the concentration of PCBs were higher inside all the schools compared to outside the school.
A new report from the American Society for Dermatologic Surgery reveals that nearly 70% of consumers have considered having non-invasive cosmetic producers. Since 2013, that number has risen, which isn't surprising in the age of selfies and social media runways. The report reviewed 7,322 in a blind online survey, revealing the #1 reason were people considering cosmetic treatments was to gain confidence, look more youthful, and feel more attractive. The desired treatments included injectables, body sculpting, and lasers.
Police said Thursday the most senior member of the Catholic Church in Australia, Cardinal George Pell, has been charged with multiple historical sexual assault offenses. When he served as the Archbishop of Melbourne from 1996 to 2001, Pell had previously denied covering up abuse committed by priests. He acknowledged, though, that his predecessor, Archbishop Frank Little, had destroyed documents to protect priests. Victoria Deputy Police Commissioner Shane Patton said at a news conference, "I want to be perfectly clear. The process and the procedures that have been followed in the charging of Cardinal Pell have been the same that have been applied in a whole range of historical sex offenses whenever we investigate them."
NBC has reported that in recent weeks, seemingly alien creatures have been found washed up in Monterey Bay. The animals look harmless, but they have caused issues within the fishing communities and may also be a sign of a more ominous issue. These mysterious sea dwellers are called pyrosomes, also referred to as sea pickles or fire bodies. They are made up of multicellular creatures called zooids. National Geographic reported that the fire bodies can be recognized by their cucumber shape and transparent jello-like exterior. Researchers have also noted that the organisms are asexual, but not much else is known.
Reuters has reported that U.S. Homeland Security officials are announcing on Wednesday new enhanced security measures for flights arriving in the United States from around the world, but are not announcing an immediate expansion of an in-cabin ban on large electronic devices, including laptops. The decision not to impose new restrictions on laptops is a boost to U.S. airlines, who had worried that an expansion of the ban to Europe or other locations could have caused significant logistical problems and potentially deterred some travel plans. Airports who failed to meet new security requirements could still face future restrictions.
One day before President Donald Trump's temporary ban on all refugees and travelers from 6 predominantly Muslim countries is scheduled to take effect, there's still widespread uncertainty about how the administration will implement it. The confusion follows a U.S. Supreme Court decision Monday that allowed the long-delayed executive order to take effect, but significantly narrowed its scope. It exempted travelers and refugees who have a bona fide relationship with a person or entity in the United States. As of Wednesday, the main federal departments and agencies responsible for implementing the ban had not issued official legal guidance to staff in the field or to the public. Among the questions to be resolved are what qualifies as a bona fide connection and how pending and future visa and refugee applications will be handled during the period of the ban. Many immigrant and refugee agencies say they need more details in order to prepare their clients for what to expect.
Quiet, quiet, quiet.
The tension between the media and President Donald Trump started long before he took office, but his rally cry hasn't changed.
These are fake news. Fake news.
But now, 6 months into office, tensions between reporters and the White House have reached new heights.
Good afternoon.
On Tuesday, in the press briefing room, one print reporter lashed out in frustration, offended by what many viewed as another lecture by the deputy press secretary.
Come on, you're inflaming everybody right here and right now with those words. You're here to ask you questions.
Right.
You're here to provide the answers, and what you just did is inflammatory to people all over the country who look at it and say, see, once again, the president's right and everybody else out here is fake media.
I disagree completely. First of all, I think if anything has been inflamed, it's the dishonesty that often takes place by the news media.
You think the whole Russia is just like bull? Could be.
She's referring to this hidden camera video from a conservative group exposing an American network producer, admitting his network is pushing the Russia election meddling story for ratings.
Our ratings are incredible right now.
On Monday, 3 employees from the same network resigned over a now retracted story about alleged ties between a Trump ally and a Russian investment fund. The president has doubled down on his accusation of fake news in response. In fact, social media is the president's way of speaking to the public without the filter of the press.
In recent weeks, the press office has also limited on-camera briefings. For the second time this week, when the press secretary takes the podium in the briefing room behind me, this is as far as our cameras will be allowed to go.
White House attempts to control the media narrative aren't new. Several presidents have attempted to limit media coverage, including Bill Clinton. His White House also turned the cameras off at press briefings just weeks into his presidency.
I think we found that it wasn't really necessary.
But more recently, Americans have come to expect their president's staff to respond to questions from reporters who act as surrogates for the public. And the role of the media is protected under the U.S. Constitution.
And everybody in this room is only trying to do their job.
This will be great for everyone. Why do you say if?
And now is finding it increasingly difficult to do so, given the limited press access to the Trump White House.
He doesn't know if you still believe in climate.
Kimberly Helkett, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Ashes and rubble are all that's left of Alice Mimosa's shack. She says last month bailiffs forced her and her neighbours from their homes here in Ekurhuleni and then set them alight.
Very painful because I'm a single parent, I'm not working. As I said, I'm living with my daughter's grant. So for now to start afresh, I don't know where to go and what to do.
The people from here say most of their possessions were destroyed in the fires, like items of clothing. Here, the remains of a bed. Other people say that important documents were destroyed, like driving licenses and birth certificates. And they say they don't understand why the eviction was done in such a violent and destructive way. It was a private security company known as the Red Ant, seen here in a 2012 eviction, that carried it out. Its workers are renowned for their ruthlessness. The Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Authority sent them to evict Alice and her neighbours because it says the settlement was illegal. The residents say they had nowhere else to go, so they built shacks on empty land here where they could be close to jobs. Forced evictions aren't new in South Africa. Under apartheid, the government kept urban centres for whites only and forced blacks and others into faraway townships. In this 1970s eviction near Cape Town, it removed more than 60,000 people. Noor Neeftagodian was among them. Now he researches South Africa's housing problems.
Well, that the intention behind the removals has less to do with race, but its consequences being to reinforce racial segregation and urban apartheid. It's principally been about keeping poor people at bay, trying to control the presence of poor people in urban areas and where they are present.
The urban population's growing. The government says it's trying to provide housing for poor communities located within reach of jobs, and that evictions are necessary to keep land for other uses, including social housing.
You invade a piece of land, you're committing what we call queue jumping. But because we are in a constitutional democracy, we don't evict people illegally.
Shireen and her neighbours say they knew of no court proceedings when they were evicted, and they wonder if they'll ever find a place to call home. Malcolm Webb, Al Jazeera, Ekurhuleni, South Africa.
Despite seasonal calls nationwide to protect against the flu, reports indicate only about 40% of adults in the U.S. get flu shots. A research team at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, has partnered with the GA Institute of Technology in a clinical trial using a patch, similar to a sticking plaster, that has a collection of microneedles on the surface. When the plaster is pressed into the skin, the microneedles dissolve, carrying the active ingredient of the flu vaccine into the body. The study showed the microneedle patch was safe and effective with no adverse reactions reported. More research is needed, but the big takeaway was that people preferred the patch to the traditional needle across the board.
On Wednesday, the NYPD announced that it will give out a $40,000 reward for tips involving the case of a mysterious explosion in Central Park that seriously injured a college student. Last July, the student Connor Golden reportedly jumped off a rock formation near the Central Park entrance by 5th Avenue and 60th Street. When he landed, a device left on the ground blew off Golden's lower leg. He now walks with the help of a prosthesis. According to authorities, who are asking visitors with photos around the area to come forward, the compound used in the explosive has been seen in recent attacks overseas.
When a small army of militants allied to Islamic State took over parts of Marawi City in the southern Philippines last month, many of the country's Muslims were alarmed. While the Christian-majority Philippines has endured bouts of insurrection by Muslim groups for centuries, the two communities mostly live together peacefully. Now, the vicious urban battle with government forces for control of Marawi may intensify the divide. Almost 400 people have been killed in the month-long battle in the area, which is on the Philippines' southernmost island, Mindanao.
On Wednesday, NBC News reports that many in the Chaldean Christian community of Detroit who reportedly voted for Donald Trump are now facing mass deportations. Wissam Naum, a Detroit lawyer and Chaldean community leader, said, "Trump won off our backs, so there is a great sense of betrayal and anger in the community." The Iraqi religious minority group in Michigan fears of being forcibly returned to Iraq, where they fear their faith endangers them. Naum said the Iraqi nationals thought Trump was the best option to keep them safe, since he has spoken about protecting Christians in foreign countries.
The leaders of the U.S. and South Korea share a common goal. They both want North Korea to abandon the nuclear and missile programs that have rapidly expanded under the country's supreme leader, Kim Jong-un. Presidents Moon Jae-in and Donald Trump meet for the first time Thursday. They have different ideas about how to reach their common goal. Moon is a liberal who took office last month after his conservative predecessor was impeached on corruption charges. He's a strong proponent of engagement with Pyongyang. The Trump administration wants to pressure Kim to the negotiating table, but with preconditions.